Our next presenter, please. This is Kawalya Isa, Dr. Kawalya Isa. The title of your paper is Interreligious Dialogue, Interfaith Actors and Conflict Presentation for Development in Uganda. Please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Isa Kawalya, and first of all, I have to apologize that my colleague is not around. Was supposed to co-present with me. But one thing that I normally want to talk about myself when it comes to the issues of interfaith actions and conflict prevention is that I am myself a product of interfaith. My mother is a strong Catholic, a very strong Catholic, and my father is a practicing Muslim. So I grew up in that kind of dichotomy between religions. My father could say that, and my mother is also saying that. Every other day there is mass in a house conducted by my mother and the village catechist, and then on Friday, my father is conducting a dua. So I grew up seeing that kind of thing. Then when it comes to studying, I'm taken to different schools, to universities, different, and that one gave me a kind of experience that one day, maybe I'll do that. So when it comes to doctoral studies, I go to a pure Catholic university and do a Ph.D. in political science, basically interreligious dialogue and interfaith action. So this paper, I called my colleague and said, we should develop something like this one and then publish it together. He's also a specialist in that area, and he's also a product of that environment. And therefore, the paper I'm supposed to present today is Interfaith Action and Conflict Prevention in Uganda. Because I believe, personally, that there must be areas where these two or many regions must come together and then agree that they should do something, because one thing is for sure, no one is going to migrate away from us. We are all created on this planet. Christian, Muslim, Jews, etc. were all created on this same planet. Sorry. Now, my country is basically multi-religious. The Roman Catholics seem to be the majority. The Anglican seem to be somewhere there, not very far away from the Roman Catholics. The Muslims take that portion. The Pentecostals take that portion. And then the Seventh-day and others. Now, there are always debates whether the atheists should not have a position. In my country, the atheists are there, but they take a very small portion. And therefore, the struggle is normally between three: the Roman Catholics, the Anglican, and the Muslims. All right? But the Muslims take that very little share, and therefore they always see the struggle between the Roman Catholics and the Anglican. Sometime along the way, the Muslims watch as there is that inter-conflict between Christians, that is the Roman Catholics and the Anglican. One thing which I want to say before is that this struggle is in every aspect of life. Like that small story that I've given you from the background of my family. It is not only at family level, but in every structure of society at all levels. And therefore, development, the debate is on you, whether there is going to be development or underdevelopment. At a particular time, you are going to see development, because these respective institutions are going to compete with each other. But at another angle, you are going to see those which are very small, who don't have resources, being outcompeted and thrown out of the circle. Okay. Now, the background to my paper is that Uganda is a great multi-religious community. And 95% of the population profess to either Christian or Muslims. And I'm not underlooking the others because I've talked about it. So there is that competition all the time. And the other thing is that there has always been some little degree of pulling the rope to the extent that they can even fight. And history is telling us that during the end of the 19th century, there was a full-fledged religious war. Religious wars between Christians and Muslims, and then Christians and Christians. There was an intra-religious war that is between Christian and Christian. Here I'm talking about between Roman Catholics and Anglican. And then later between Christians and Muslims. So the Muslims were defeated and they were thrown out of the circle. So when the colonialists come around the year 1900, they combine efforts with the Anglican. So since then on, we see that kind of division. The Muslims are always pulling the rope behind, and then the political position are always taken by the Anglican. So since time long, the cultural leaders take on the Anglican side. The political leaders take on the Anglican side. The Roman Catholics, who have got a lot of resources in the rural areas, don't take political power. And in the morning, we're talking about the issues of the relationship between cultural leaders and political leaders. Religious leaders wield the power. Okay? Now, when they belong to one particular side of the circle, then they are always going to have a very good card to play. So, along the way, I developed a kind of feeling that what is it that I must use in order to create a framework for conflict resolution, conflict prevention. So I use some of these scholars to help me forge out a theoretical framework. There is a such scholar, Fatullah Gulen. For him, he says dialogue is a must. Dialogue between these religions, either intra-dialogue or inter-dialogue. Sanders, these American scholars, that in order to have sustainable development, there must be sustainable dialogue between religions. Then another one is Kung. For him, the global responsibility, there must be that world ethics. And that world ethics must be in dialogue, in agreeing to agree. Even when you choose to agree to disagree, it is an agreement. Yes, it is a choice that you have chosen to disagree, but then you must live together. So those three scholars helped me to forge a conceptual framework, and that is the framework that I chose with my colleague. That when we lean, for example, on the ideas of Samuel Huntington's civilizations, just in case Islam is a civilization and Christianity is a civilization, these are going to be parallel civilizations, am I right? And because they have no choice but to agree, and they must be somewhere in a room, they are going to enter that arena and then agree on particular actions, and this is where I am. Which are those actions that they must agree on? At the time when they come out, there is that reduced conflict. When they were entering there, they had a very big conflict. They were not agreeing together. Here, after that arena, they have at least agreed something. And that framework we developed from the three ideas of the scholars. The methodology we used. Definitely, we used the qualitative methodological approach, very many informal interviews, group discussions, basically religious leaders, elders, community leaders, and very many people we consulted, and they were giving us those very important information. Now, we conducted our research throughout the whole country because of its being a multi-religious community. Almost everybody professes a particular religion. And we were looking at faith-based organizations in the 5 regional networks of the country. And we're like, every region, because of the competition, the silent competition, every region has got a faith-based organization because they must compete. So we're asking them, and each one of them, they are saying, for us as Catholics, we are not treated well by the politicians, by those who are policy making. And then the Anglicans are saying, for us, we've got the political power, but we don't have resources at the grassroots. And then the Muslims were saying, for us, we are bystanders. We go by the decisions of those who have got political power. So this kind of situation, is it for development for the country? Yes and no. Yes, in a way that each one must compete to survive. And no, because those who don't have resources, especially the Muslims who are not given by the colonialist resources, they will never go to school. Schools, for example, universities belong to either either Anglican or Roman Catholics. Okay, so when Idi Amin Dada, everybody knows, for him he came and grabbed from the Christian and gave to the Muslims. He grabbed from the Catholic and gave to the Muslims. When he goes away, they are taken back. So that is the debate between us. Is it for development or not for development? Now, what were the findings after all the interjection, the interludes, and the interactions? We found out that religious leaders, when they act together, they will produce the best mobilization and sensitization skills for development. When they act as interfaith organizations combining all religions, they will agree that this one we should do together, this one we should not do together. Even that they have not agreed to do together, they will not fight. Then for peace and unity, a porous situation, country bogged in insecurity for the last 50 years since independence. But when religious leaders sit together, all of them, the mufti, the cardinal, and they agree that we should have the constitution not changed. So in a way that interfaith actions can lead to development because they agree on particular areas of being concerned. Then psychosocial support. There are areas like immunization. They work together because the disease will not segregate and will not know that whether you're Christian or a Muslim. So they act together, like civic education, in form of education, before an election. They work together because they have no choice. Even when they know that they are not going to really work together, here they must work together. Then knowing each other. I have seen situations where there is the pastor is seated there, the mufti is seated there on a function, and they agree to give a single speech. So then there are friendship and togetherness. These very many activities which they must do. I facilitated a workshop, and most of these people were professing to different religions and were laughing and smiling and working together and eating together. And it is somebody who is going to say, hey, please don't eat that, you're Muslim. Oh, please eat this one because you are not. That kind of thing. That kind of relationship, we found that it is really possible for them to work together. Then, what are the benefits of interfaith actions? One, advocacy. Development, social development, especially Uganda, is around 75% rural. And when you're talking about advocacy and mobilization for social development, they work together. All the regions, they work together. And then there is other unique organizations which are multi-faith. Women Faith Network. A Muslim, a Christian, all women who profess a particular religion now called interfaith. Not Muslim, not Christian, not Islam. And they are all women. And then Interfaith Youth Network. a young man Muslim, a young man Christian, a young man Jew, all of them working together. And at the end of the day, there is great success in that area. Now, what are the challenges? What are the challenges? That word. Sometimes I have a stammer, I cannot pronounce that word, but I think you have better English than me. There is that word I cannot pronounce. Okay, that one. My wife also did the same. I cannot. Now, in society, there are those people who want to take the extreme. All right? Who want at least that area which is going to cause disagreement. He stands out and then he is advocating for disagreement. Why don't you come nearer and then take on an issue which is going to combine me with you than which is going to divide me with you? So that is a challenge, a very big challenge that we found out when we were collecting data. The extreme position, you want to take the extreme position instead of that position which is going to bring me closer to you. But then that language, we've got these conservative people in society, hardlined, and it's like he's not going to sit with somebody who's. I witnessed a situation where, I'm sorry to say, it was a nun. She said, can you remove that, this Muslim rosary? Yeah, remove it, and then we shall talk to you. And the reverse is true. A young tabligh boy, I don't know what can define tabligh, he came and said, remove that rosary, that cross, and then we shall talk to you. So there are those hardline people in society who cause that first word which I failed to pronounce. So there is inflexibility and fear of loss of identity. Sometimes they are too inflexible to the extent that they think that by coming to the dialogue arena, they are going to lose their identity. The purpose is not to convert you, and the purpose is not to convert me, but the purpose is to know each other, as he has emphasized in the paper. And at the end of the day, we've got that agreement of unity, that agreement of you are what you are and I am what I am, but then we must agree to live together as a community on earth. The challenges continue. Doctrinal differences. Yes, you know what you know according to your interpretation. I don't know what I know according to my interpretation. We interpret things differently because we are different according to the verse that we read. You are what you are, and I am what I am. I'm black, you're yellow, you're green. But we are different, but we are all human beings. Okay? So this doctrinal difference, you call him Allah, I call him God. A certain idiot in my country has sued a particular community for calling God Allah. And another one also said, I'm also going to sue you for calling Allah God. I mean, the question now is, where are you going to end? They have gone to court. I think that sometimes when you have nothing to do, you create what to do by doing nonsense. Am I right? Yeah, I think that is being nonsensical because you have nothing to do. Then intra-religious wrangles. Intra, not inter. You've got Christian versus Christian, Muslim versus Shia versus Sunni. Instead of building a block of one and then grow vertically, you want to grow horizontally. It becomes very terrible. Then poverty, yes, sometimes it is very dangerous to be poor. Sometimes it is very dangerous to be poor because poverty, in most of these conflictual situations which are based on religion, it is because of poverty. Yes, it is because of poverty, and somewhere, somehow, I proved it in the article, in the full article, but I cannot explain it much more further because he has warned me. Then lack of facilitation and administration, this is also poverty. Then poor communication and lack of coordination between interfaith organizations. There must be organization. I mean, that horizontal coordination. Then historical religious differences. I told you the story in the article about the wars, religious wars. Each one is pulling the rope in order to gain political control. I want a Roman Catholic to be in power. I want an Anglican leader to be in power. I want a Muslim to be in power. Differences in levels of education, I think that one is also clear. Now, conclusion. I like that lady, Ellen Vivoti. That's where I got my conclusion. That let us build bridges. And these bridges should not be really only for crossing. But it is the real crossing that is going to create a difference. That there is that mountain and this mountain. My mother the other side and my father the other side. These are the two mountains. And I was the bridge. I was the bridge. I grew up as a bridge between my mother and my father. And therefore, it is the crossing, according to this lady, which is really very important. The crossing. And when you cross, according to him, is that you know each other. You know the other side. I know this side. Okay? So that those two people, Naika Fultini and Viventi, enlightened my conclusion that let us build bridges and then let us use the bridges to cross and go to another side. My recommendations are in 3 sections. At national level, what should be done? There must be a government should recognize religious leaders. You remember last time, just in the morning? What is the role of spiritual leaders? There is a divide between religious leaders and political leaders. In my country, the president, the political leaders, don't want to listen to religious leaders. The religious leaders pull the crowd. They have that soft power. That soft power, you have political power. They control 95% of the vote. So if I was a politician, I would go and maybe campaign in church or a mosque instead of campaigning on a playground. Because when a religious man says, I want to do that, and it happens, when the bishop says, don't go, people don't go. Okay? Then that is at national level. There must be that commission, National Reconciliation Commission, established occasion which Muslims and Christians interact to meet so that the other framework can work. Establish a regional, etc., etc. Now, at community level, the religious leaders should be sensitive, positive with regard to needs, interests, and spiritual demands of people of other faith. That one I emphasize it because it is a breakdown of others. All these small faith organizations are coming from community level. And if that is there, then the other framework would be working, that you go in with those parallel views, and then as you get out, you've got at least a limited area of differences. Limited area of differences. But when you are coming in, you've got a very big area of differences. At personal level, this is where I am, at personal level. Let each individual recognize the other, that he is a human being the way he is. Did I make a choice to be Muslim? My community, African community, is a patriarchal community where the father decides, not the mother. I am a Muslim because of my father. I wish I was asked at birth. I would choose, maybe, I take my mother because I love my mother. But the patriarchal society decides that I follow my father. So why do you hate me for being a Muslim? Did I participate in that decision? I did not. So this is where we are. Why create that conflict which is unnecessary? So at personal level, everything starts at the level. There is a lot of details there. Now, Interreligious Council of Uganda is the umbrella organization which talks the language that I'm talking, and I am the technical officer of that organization in that country. And we are saying there must be that mobilization from personal level to community level to national level. That these levels work together in order to make sure that development and change starts with an individual and then it goes further. Thank you very much. I am the bridge between my mother and my father.